What happens when a laid-back comedian known for laughing everything off suddenly stops smiling on live TV and tells a host to hold on? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. Joy Behar's already mid-sentence, waving her card a little, that familiar half-smile on her face as the audience settles after applause. We're back with Seth Rogen, she says, stretching his name the way she does. Actor, producer, writer, cannabis entrepreneur. The crowd laughs lightly at that. And he's here promoting his new project, which... Sunny Hostin leans forward, cutting in smoothly. And also, Seth, you've been very outspoken lately about Hollywood, about power, about who gets protected and who doesn't. I want to talk about that. There's a subtle shift. Seth's still smiling, but it's tighter now. He nods, hands folded in his lap. Sure, yeah. Whoopi Goldberg clocks it immediately. She glances from Sunny to Seth. All right, go ahead, Sunny. Sunny doesn't hesitate. You've criticized what you call selective accountability in the industry. But some people say it's easy to say that when you're already successful, when you're insulated. Do you think you'd be saying the same things if you didn't have your level of privilege? A low murmur ripples through the audience. Seth exhales through his nose, almost a laugh, but it doesn't quite land. I mean, look, I don't think pointing out problems suddenly becomes invalid because you've had success. Sunny presses. But isn't that the definition of talking from a place of safety? Joy jumps in, trying to lighten it. Sunny's basically saying, you're rich now, Seth. The audience chuckles. Seth smiles again, quick. Yeah, I get the question. He nods, then pauses, choosing words. I just think that if the only people allowed to criticize systems are the ones actively being crushed by them, nothing ever changes. There's applause, scattered but supportive. Sunny raises her eyebrows. But you're not being crushed by them. Seth tilts his head. No, but I've watched people who were. That lands heavier. Whoopi leans back, arms crossed. Okay, but give an example. Well, Seth says, shifting in his chair, I've seen careers end over whispers, while other people with far worse behavior get standing ovations because they're powerful or profitable. Sunny interjects. Are you talking about specific people? Seth hesitates for half a beat. I'm talking about patterns. Sunny doesn't let it go. Because when you say things like that, it sounds vague enough to protect you, but inflammatory enough to stir outrage. The audience reacts, some oohs, some clapping, some uncomfortable shifting. Seth's smile finally fades. He leans forward a little. Hold on. The room quiets fast. Even Joy stops moving her cards. Hold on, Seth repeats, calm but firmer now. I came here to talk, not to get boxed into some gotcha moment where I either name names or get accused of hiding. Sunny meets his gaze. No one's boxing you in. I'm asking you to stand by what you say. And I am, Seth replies. But I'm not going to turn this into a courtroom drama. Whoopi lifts a hand. All right. Sunny cuts in. Seth, with respect, when influential men speak broadly about accountability, it often shifts attention away from victims and toward the feelings of powerful people. That does it. Seth straightens up fully now. See, that's exactly the framing I'm talking about. The audience murmurs again. I'm not centering myself, he continues. I'm saying the system protects certain people. And every time someone points that out, the response is, well, what about you? Joy jumps in, half teasing, half serious. Well, what about you? Seth lets out a short laugh, but there's frustration underneath. I've benefited from the system. I openly admit that. That doesn't mean I'm wrong. Sunny folds her arms. But it does mean you get to walk away unscathed. Sunny, Seth says, voice still controlled but sharper now. I'm sitting here getting interrogated on daytime television. That's not exactly walking away. The audience laughs, then claps. Whoopi nods. That's fair. Sunny shakes her head slightly. This isn't interrogation. This is conversation. Then let it be one, Seth replies. Not a trap. There's a beat. You can feel the producers somewhere backstage holding their breath. Joy tries to smooth it over. Okay, everyone breathe. Seth, let me ask it a different way. Sunny interrupts again. No, because this matters. Words matter. Seth turns to her fully now. I agree, which is why I'm being careful with mine instead of performing outrage for applause. The audience reacts loudly to that. Some cheers, some gasps. Sunny's eyes widen just a touch. Are you saying I'm performing? I'm saying this format rewards escalation, Seth says. And I'm not interested in escalating just to prove I'm morally pure. Whoopi lets out a low mm. He's not wrong about that. Sunny looks at Whoopi, then back to Seth. So what are you interested in? Actual change, Seth answers immediately, which usually happens off camera, not in viral clips. Joy laughs nervously. Well, there goes our show. That gets a bigger laugh, easing the tension for a second. Seth cracks a smile, but Sunny doesn't. But you're here, Sunny says. On camera. Yes, Seth replies, and I'm answering you honestly. I just won't play along with the idea that unless I self-flagellate first, my point doesn't count. The audience applauds more strongly now. Someone whistles. Whoopi steps in. All right, we're going to take a breath. Seth, I hear you saying the system's flawed. Sunny, you're saying accountability has to be specific. That's the disagreement, right? Sunny nods. Yes, and I think vague criticism can be a shield. Seth shakes his head. And I think forcing specificity in a hostile environment can be a weapon. Another ripple through the crowd. Joy looks between them. This got deep fast. Whoopi smiles slightly. That's what happens when people actually talk. Sunny leans back finally, uncrossing her arms. I'm not hostile. I'm skeptical. Fair, Seth says. And I'm guarded. Also fair. There's a pause that feels unscripted, real. The audience senses it too, quiet, attentive. Whoopi nods. Okay, we're going to keep this conversation going, because clearly there's more here. Seth exhales, shoulders lowering just a bit. Yeah, there is. Sunny gives a small, tight smile. Good. The tension hasn't disappeared, but it's settled into something heavier, more serious. And everyone watching can feel it. This isn't over. The audience applause dies down unevenly, a mix of support and uncertainty, the kind that lingers in the air. Whoopi leans forward, palms resting on the table, looking from Seth to Sunny like she's measuring how much space to give this before it tips. All right, Whoopi says calmly, let's slow this down for a second, because I think people at home are trying to follow what just happened. Joy nods quickly. Yes, because my blood pressure. That gets a quick laugh from the audience, but it fades fast. Sunny turns slightly toward Whoopi. I'm not trying to escalate anything. I'm trying to be precise. And precision matters when we're talking about power. Seth nods once tight. I don't disagree with that. Then why does it sound like you're pushing back so hard? Sunny asks. Because, Seth says, leaning in again, there's a difference between accountability and performance. And sometimes the demand for specificity isn't about clarity. It's about forcing someone into a position where they either hurt people they care about or get labeled evasive. The audience murmurs again. Someone claps, then stops when no one joins in. Sunny shakes her head. But you're still protecting the powerful by not naming them. Seth's eyebrows lift. You're assuming I'm talking about one person. Well, that's how it comes across, Sunny says. And you know how media works. Joy interjects. She's got a point there. You guys know Twitter's already typing. Seth lets out a dry laugh. Yeah, Twitter's always typing. Whoopi raises a hand slightly. Sunny, let me ask you this. Do you think there's any value in someone saying, the system itself is broken, without listing offenders? Sunny doesn't hesitate. There can be. But when that person is a wealthy, influential man, the question becomes, who bears the risk? Seth's jaw tightens just a little. And that's where I think we keep circling the same thing. You're framing risk as something only one kind of person experiences. Sunny leans forward again. Because historically, that's been true. Historically, Seth agrees. But not exclusively. The audience reacts to that. Some applause, some audible disagreement. Whoopi glances out toward them. All right, audience, let them talk. Sunny's voice stays measured but firm. Seth, women and marginalized people lose everything for speaking up. You're not risking that. Seth nods slowly. I'm not risking the same things. That's true. Then why not use your platform to name names? Sunny asks. Why not absorb the blow? Seth looks at her for a long beat before answering. Because sometimes absorbing the blow isn't brave, it's reckless. And it doesn't always help the people you think it does. That lands heavy. Even Joy goes quiet. Sunny tilts her head. So who does it help? It helps the audience feel satisfied, Seth says. It helps clips go viral. It doesn't necessarily help victims heal or systems change. Joy sighs. God, I miss when we talked about movies. That gets a laugh, but it's strained. Whoopi nods slowly. You know, this reminds me of conversations we've had before on this table. About tone, about delivery. Sunny looks at Whoopi. Tone gets weaponized against women all the time. And so does silence, Seth responds immediately. The audience reacts loudly to that, claps, a couple of yes calls. Sunny's lips press together. I'm not silent, she says. I'm asking questions. And I'm answering them, Seth replies. Just not in the way you want. Sunny exhales. It's not about what I want. It's about accountability. Accountability to whom? Seth asks. To the public, Sunny says. Seth shakes his head. The public isn't a courtroom. It's a crowd. Joy snaps her fingers. That's a good line. I don't agree, but it's good. Whoopi gives Joy a look. Joy. I'm just saying, Joy continues. This is daytime TV, not Congress. Sunny turns slightly toward Joy. But people learn from what we say here. Exactly, Seth says. Which is why nuance matters. Sunny laughs once sharp. Nuance is often a luxury. Seth doesn't smile back. So is outrage. There's an audible gasp from part of the audience. Whoopi leans back, eyebrows raised. Okay. Sunny's eyes flash. Are you implying I'm outraged? I'm saying the conversation keeps getting framed like I need to perform guilt to be credible, Seth replies. And I don't accept that. Sunny nods slowly. So what would credibility look like to you? Honesty, Seth says. Boundaries. And acknowledging that not every fight needs to happen on this couch. The room feels tense but quieter now, like everyone's leaning in. Whoopi speaks softly. Sunny, do you feel like he's dismissing your concern? Sunny thinks for a moment. I feel like he's underestimating the impact of not being specific. Seth nods. And I feel like you're underestimating the cost of being forced to be. Joy jumps in quickly. All right, before we all start crying or throwing chairs, we've got to take a breath. The audience laughs nervously. Whoopi looks straight at Seth. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever regretted not speaking up sooner? Seth doesn't answer right away. He swallows. Yes. The room stills. Yes, he repeats. There are moments I look back on and think I should have said more sooner. And there are moments I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't have the full picture. Sunny softens just slightly. That's honest. That's all I'm offering, Seth says. Not a performance. Not a viral moment. Joy nods. Well, you're getting one anyway. That breaks the tension just enough for laughter to ripple through the audience. Whoopi smiles faintly. We're going to keep talking about this, because clearly there's more ground to cover. Sunny looks at Seth again. I don't think we're as far apart as it sounds. Seth exhales. I don't think so either. The audience applauds, not loudly but steadily, like they're acknowledging the complexity instead of choosing sides. The energy hasn't cooled, but it's shifted. Less explosive. More loaded. And everyone at the table knows the hardest part of the conversation is still coming. The applause fades into that low, restless studio noise, people adjusting in their seats, a few coughs, the faint rustle of cue cards. Whoopi glances toward the camera, then back at the table, like she's deciding whether to pivot or push forward. All right, she says slowly. We're not going to pretend this is light conversation, so let's not rush it. Joy exhales dramatically. Thank you, because I need a sip of water after that. She takes it, the audience chuckles, but the tension doesn't lift. Sunny's eyes stay on Seth, focused, analytical. Seth shifts slightly in his chair, not defensive exactly, but alert. Sunny speaks again, quieter now. You said something important just now. You said you regretted not speaking up sooner at times. Yes, Seth replies. I did. So let me ask you this, Sunny continues. How do you decide when it's the right time? When silence becomes complicity? That question lands hard. The audience goes silent in a way that feels intentional. Seth takes a breath. I don't think there's a formula. I think anyone who tells you there is lying or selling something. Joy nods. Amen to that. But, Seth adds quickly, I also don't think silence automatically equals complicity. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's not having enough information. Sunny raises an eyebrow. And sometimes it's comfort. Yes, Seth says immediately. Sometimes it is. There's a ripple of reaction. People impressed he didn't dodge that. Whoopi leans in. Okay, that's an important admission. Sunny nods slowly. It is. But here's where I'm struggling. When influential people acknowledge that comfort plays a role, but still refuse to be specific, it feels like they're naming the problem without touching it. Seth presses his lips together, thinking. Or, he says carefully, it's acknowledging that ripping the bandage off in public isn't always the treatment. Joy tilts her head. But sometimes it is. Sometimes, Seth agrees. And sometimes it just reopens the wound for everyone involved. Sunny's tone sharpens slightly. That sounds like protecting feelings over justice. Seth looks at her. Whose justice? The audience reacts, soft ooze, a couple of claps. Sunny doesn't blink. The people who were harmed. And if they don't want their trauma debated on morning television? Seth asks. If they didn't consent to that? That gives Sunny pause. She inhales, then exhales. That's fair. But not everyone has the luxury of privacy. I know, Seth says quietly. And that's exactly why I'm careful. Whoopi nods, thoughtful. This is the part people don't like. The gray. Joy sighs. America hates gray. The audience laughs, grateful for a moment of levity. Sunny looks out toward the audience briefly, then back to Seth. Do you think conversations like this one actually change anything? Seth smiles faintly. Honestly. Yes, Sunny says. Honestly. I think they change how people talk, he says. I don't know if they change how institutions behave. Joy jumps in. Institutions don't have souls. That's true, Seth says. People do. Sunny leans forward again. Then shouldn't people with power take bigger risks? Seth doesn't answer immediately. He looks down for a second, then back up. They should take smarter ones. The audience murmurs. Someone claps. Someone else groans. Sunny tilts her head. That sounds like a way to stay safe. It's a way to stay effective, Seth replies. Whoopi gestures between them. Okay, let me interrupt, because I want to make sure viewers aren't missing this. Sunny's asking for moral courage. Seth's talking about strategic responsibility. Those are not the same thing. Joy snaps her fingers. Exactly. Sunny nods. But they're not mutually exclusive either. No, Seth agrees. They're not. There's another pause. This one feels heavier, more introspective. Whoopi breaks it gently. Seth, when you talk to younger actors, younger writers, what do you tell them about speaking up? Seth's expression softens. I tell them to protect themselves, to document everything, to find allies before they go public, and to remember that the internet doesn't care about their long-term well-being. The audience responds strongly to that, applause, murmurs of agreement. Sunny watches him closely. So you acknowledge that going public can be dangerous? Yes, Seth says, which is why I don't encourage people to do it impulsively. Sunny nods. Then why criticize those who ask you to? I'm not criticizing the ask, Seth replies. I'm criticizing the expectation. Joy leans in. Oof, that's a distinction. Whoopi smiles slightly. A very Whoopi-approved distinction. Sunny allows a small smile, then reins it back in. But you understand why people want clarity. I do, Seth says. And I understand why people are angry. Sunny's voice softens. Anger comes from pain. I know, Seth replies. And I respect that. I just don't think anger should be the entry fee for credibility. The audience applauds again, louder this time. Joy looks out at them. All right, audience has opinions. Whoopi chuckles. They always do. Sunny folds her hands together. Let me be clear about something. I'm not asking you to self-immolate on this table. Seth laughs, surprised. Good. I'm asking whether you recognize that when you say the system, people hear avoidance, Sunny continues. Seth nods. I do recognize that. So would you consider changing how you say it? She asks. Even if you don't change what you say? That's a different question, and it lands differently. Seth thinks for a moment. Yes, he says finally. That's fair. I can own that. The audience reacts positively, applause, nods, a few hum sounds. Whoopi smiles. That's called growth. Joy grins. On live TV. Rare. Sunny nods once. I appreciate that answer. Seth exhales, like he didn't realize he was holding his breath. I appreciate the question, even if I pushed back. Sunny meets his gaze. Pushback is part of it. Whoopi looks at the clock. All right, we're going to have to pause soon, but I want to say this. This is what real conversation looks like. Not yelling. Not slogans. Joy raises her mug. Speak for yourself. I love a slogan. The audience laughs. Sunny glances at Seth one more time. I still think specificity matters. And I still think context does, Seth replies. Whoopi nods. And that's the disagreement. Not whether accountability matters. Just how it happens. The applause this time is steadier, more unified. Not cheering, not booing, acknowledging. Seth leans back slightly, tension still there, but different now. Less combative. More reflective. Sunny straightens her notes, but her posture has softened. Joy looks into the camera. And when we come back, because yes, there's more, We're going to talk about what happens after conversations like this. Off the couch. The audience claps again as the music cue starts faintly. Whoopi smiles at Seth. You okay? Seth nods. Yeah, I'm okay. Sunny adds quietly, almost off mic. Me too. The camera pulls back just enough to catch the shared moment. Uneasy, unresolved, but real. And everyone watching knows the hardest part isn't what was said on air. It's what comes after. The music fades out and the applause comes back stronger this time. Not explosive, but sustained, like the audience is releasing something they'd been holding. Whoopi looks into the camera with that familiar half-smile that usually signals a reset, but her tone stays serious. We're back, she says. And if you're just joining us, yeah, it's been that kind of conversation. Joy exhales audibly. I feel like we all just went to therapy together. The audience laughs, grateful for the release, but the weight is still there. Seth adjusts in his chair, rolling his shoulders slightly, like someone who knows the hardest part isn't over yet. Sunny straightens her papers, then deliberately sets them aside. Whoopi looks at Seth. Before we wrap this up, I want to give you the last word on this. Not a soundbite. Just, what do you want people to take from what you're saying? Seth nods slowly. I want people to understand that accountability isn't one size fits all. That pushing for justice and protecting people aren't opposing goals. And that sometimes the loudest response isn't the most helpful one. Sunny listens closely, then responds. And I want people to understand that silence, especially from people with power, can feel like abandonment to those without it. Seth nods. I hear that. There's no interruption this time. That alone feels significant. Whoopi looks between them. And that right there is the conversation. The audience applauds, louder now. Not cheering, not booing, acknowledging. Someone stands briefly, then sits back down. The camera catches a few nodding heads. Joy leans toward Seth. For what it's worth, I don't think you came in here planning to snap. Seth lets out a small laugh. No, I really didn't. Sunny adds, and I don't think you're afraid of the conversation. Thank you, Seth says. I'm just cautious about how it's used. Whoopi nods, as everyone should be. The director is clearly wrapping them up. Whoopi looks into the camera again. We appreciate you sticking with us through a tough but important discussion. The applause swells again as the segment ends. But the moment doesn't end when the camera's cut. As soon as the music plays out, the energy in the room shifts. The audience starts talking to each other, animated whispers, debates breaking out in rows. Some people clap again as Seth stands. A few call out, thank you. Others shake their heads, unconvinced but engaged. Seth walks over to Sunny first, off camera now. They exchange a brief, quiet handshake. No smiles, but no hostility either. Good conversation, Sunny says quietly. Yeah, Seth replies. It was. Joy pats Seth on the arm. Next time you're on, we'll just talk about weed. Seth laughs genuinely this time. Deal. Backstage, producers are already buzzing. Phones are out. Clips are being scrubbed. Someone says, that hold-on moment is everywhere. Another says, Twitter's split straight down the middle. And they're right. Within minutes, social media lights up. Clips circulate of Seth saying, the public isn't a courtroom. It's a crowd. Others focus on Sunny's line about silence feeling like abandonment. Hashtags start forming. Some praising Seth for pushing back against performative outrage. Others accusing him of dodging responsibility. Comment sections fill fast. He finally said what everyone's thinking. Sunny was right to push him. This is what real conversation looks like. He talked in circles. She wouldn't let him finish. Even other celebrities weigh in. Some praise the exchange for its nuance. Others post vague comments about comfort versus courage, without naming names, fueling the debate even more. By afternoon, entertainment blogs run headlines about the tension. Not sensational, but pointed. Analysts break down body language. Opinion columns argue whether Seth won, or whether that was even the point. Behind the scenes, the hosts debrief. Whoopi says it plainly. That was real. People felt seen, even if they didn't agree. Joy nods. Yeah, no one stormed off. That's a win these days. Sunny sits quietly for a moment before speaking. I stand by my questions, but I'm glad he stayed. Later that evening, Seth addresses it briefly. Not with a long thread, just a short post. Appreciate the tough conversation today. Disagreement doesn't have to mean disrespect. That post gets shared widely. Some applaud it. Others criticize it. But it keeps the tone from spiraling. And that's the thing everyone keeps coming back to. No one flipped a table. No one walked off. No one issued an apology tour. Instead, people are still talking. The audience reaction continues to evolve over the next few days. Viewers write in saying it made them uncomfortable, in a good way. Others say it frustrated them because there were no easy answers. Some thank Sunny for pushing. Some thank Seth for holding his ground. What happened after the show wasn't resolution. It was reflection. And that's why the clip keeps circulating. Not because of yelling. Not because of a meltdown. But because a calm, laid-back comedian finally said, "Hold on," and meant it. Now we want to hear from you. Whose side were you on? Did Seth make his point, or did Sunny expose a blind spot? Was this accountability or avoidance? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.